He was summoned to another world as the weakest F-rank hero but tamed a legendary SS rank beast. Mukoda is a disgusting, pathetic 27-year-old loser who has nothing going on in his life. No girls, a garbage job, and he's poorer than you, which is already difficult. Yet, for some reason, this guy was summoned to another world with 3 other students. The princess comes to them with the story they're heroes and must save the kingdom and reveal they have special abilities. Among them, there was a swordsman and 2 mages. The summoner started to read out their skills in front of the audience, and everyone was impressed. Until it was Mukoda's turn, of course. Turns out that his only second chance at life was created by a troll who gave the unique S-rank special ability of running an online grocery store. He asked if he had any other abilities, but he didn't, and it hit him hard. After that, they met the king, who kindly asked the heroes for help in defeating the Demon King. The king mentioned that the Demon King knew how to get them back to their world. But the heroes agreed to help, except for Mukoda. He just wanted a simple, quiet life and thought he might only get in the way. With the little money he was given, Mukoda decided to go shopping and then stay at a nearby inn. As he wandered through town, he noticed people staring at him due to his unusual clothing, so he decided to buy some appropriate clothes. He bought clothes, food, and a place to sleep and was glad he didn't choose the hero's path. While at the inn, he discovered that in this world, there was a status window similar to what he'd seen online. He finally learned how to use his ability, which appeared to be like Amazon but simpler. He was intrigued by this online store and ordered some snacks. He paid through the window, and within seconds, the package appeared through a portal. Finally, he realized that his skill could be useful but didn't want the higher-ups to know, so he wanted to leave the kingdom as soon as possible. The next day, Mukoda decided to leave the kingdom. While traveling, he met an elderly merchant who explained the value and rarity of different abilities in this world. The merchant had a skill called an item box, which only 1 in 1,000 people possessed. This made Mukoda realize that his appraisal ability was quite powerful, especially among merchants. The item box was like a semi-infinite bag and was typically only possessed by kingdoms and guilds. To wrap up their conversation, the old merchant mentioned that leaving the country was a wise decision because there were rumors that the kingdom would close its borders due to an imminent attack by multiple monsters. As a result, all transportation within the country had been suspended. Unfortunately, this left Mukoda stranded since the stagecoach service was also halted to prevent people from fleeing to neighboring countries. Later that day, Mukoda decided to visit the Adventurers Guild to hire some companions who could help him on his journey to the neighboring country. The guild staff informed him that it would take several days and cost a considerable amount of gold coins. Mukoda didn't hesitate long and ended up paying the 8 gold coins they requested. This is how we met Werner from Iron Will, a rank C adventurer, and his group, who agreed to accompany Mukoda to the neighboring country. The next morning, we got to know the other members of the group: Swordsman Vincent, Scout Rita, Mage Ramon, and Healer Franca. After this brief introduction, our adventurers set out on their long journey to the neighboring kingdom of Venan. During a break, Mukoda brought out his supplies for a meal, and the group was fascinated by his item box. He made sandwiches for everyone, and they all fell in love with his cooking. Throughout the journey, all they wanted were these delicious meals from him. As they moved through the forest, they encountered wild bugs, but the team easily defeated them. Rita then informed Werner about a giant wild boar up ahead. With their skills, Werner and Vincent managed to defeat it effortlessly. Later, thanks to the meat from the giant boar, Mukoda decided to prepare a different dinner for the group, as they weren't accustomed to eating boar meat. When the adventurers tasted the soup he made, they found it not only delicious but also significantly boosted their main statistics. Mukoda noticed their improved health but didn't recall adding any supplements to the meal. So, he used his appraisal ability to check their stats and was shocked to see increased stamina and magic powers. He knew it would be risky if someone discovered his true ability, so he resolved to keep it a secret. And their journey continued. Mukoda continued to prepare dinner every day, and the group thoroughly enjoyed his cooking. However, one day, out of nowhere, a mythical beast named Fenrir appeared before them. It was a giant, misty white fox. Fenrir demanded food from Mukoda, and since he was unsatisfied with the meal he received, he asked for more. Mukoda didn't have enough food on hand, so he requested Fenrir's patience while he prepared another meal. Surprisingly, Fenrir agreed. Mukoda spent many hours preparing food for the beast, and after several meals, Fenrir claimed to be satisfied. He expressed a desire to form a familiar contract with Mukoda. Though Mukoda was initially hesitant, he felt pressure from Fenrir and his group to accept. In the end, he agreed when the fox touched his forehead, and Fenrir became somewhat like a pet to him. Afterward, Mukoda decided to give his new companion a name, and they came to know his pet as Fel. As they neared the border, Werner grew increasingly concerned. It was because of the legend of Fenrir, which said that this creature had the power to destroy an entire country. The problem for Mukoda was that gaining access to the neighboring country could be quite complicated with such a powerful and potentially destructive creature with them. He had tried to flee one country, only to encounter another problem. However, Fel assured Mukoda that he would take care of anything that might stand in their way and destroy it. As it approached mealtime that day, Mukoda began unpacking his supplies. Unfortunately, he didn't have much boar meat left. Seeing the limited amount of meat, Fel immediately requested more. To avoid an argument, Mukoda told Fel that if he wanted more meat, he would have to go hunting for it. Surprisingly, Fel agreed to Mukoda's request. Later on, the group of adventurers realized that Fel obediently followed all of Mukoda's orders. He even brought back a giant chicken-like creature ready to be turned into a meal. It was a B-ranked monster that would have taken Werner all his energy to defeat. Mukoda got to work, and after feeding the group, he prepared Fel's meal. Sometime later, Mukoda and the group arrived at the border of the neighboring kingdom. Werner went to explain their situation to the guards, but they were met by a large number of soldiers who were terrified by Fel's presence. Mukoda decided to personally ensure that Fel would not cause any harm or destruction within the kingdom. Fel agreed on the condition that he wouldn't hurt anyone unless they tried to hurt him. Then, a guard asked Mukoda to control the monster. To wrap things up, Mukoda warned Fel that if he caused trouble, he'd lose his daily meal. After this, Mukoda and his group entered the kingdom of Venan without any more problems. However, Mukoda had to pay an entrance fee because he didn't have a guild card like the others. Werner also cautioned Mukoda that due to the familiar contract, news would eventually reach the king, which made Mukoda sad. But he didn't plan to stay in this kingdom for long. He intended to leave with Fel when the time was right. Mukoda revealed his new goal was to explore the world and not settle in one place. Werner suggested Mukoda join either the Adventurers Guild or the Merchants Guild. This would allow him to avoid paying taxes when entering new cities or countries. Mukoda thought about joining the Merchants Guild to set up a food stall, but the group suggested he could also sell hunting spoils to an adventure guild and join both guilds simultaneously. As they continued their journey, a person from Margrave approached Mukoda. This person was a servant of the Marquess and invited Mukoda to visit their estate upon hearing about Fel and the familiar contract. At first, Mukoda declined the invitation, as he preferred a simple life, but the man insisted. Suddenly, Fel appeared before the man, making it clear that those who tried to take advantage of him met a terrible fate. The servant, belonging to a circle of nobles, likely had intentions of exploiting Fel's power. It was revealed that the only creature in the world capable of matching Fel in combat was a dragon. This made it nearly impossible for anyone to engage in a fight against him. Following this explanation, Werner and his friends informed Mukoda that their job was complete. To finish the mission, Mukoda had to sign some papers. From that point on, Mukoda and Fel would have to find their way around the city on their own. After bidding farewell, Mukoda decided to join the two guilds existing in this world, the Adventurers Guild and the Merchants Guild. This way, he could make a living by selling his goods and ensuring that Fel was well fed. Not long after, they finally arrived at the Merchants Guild. Mukoda registered as a merchant, and the people inside were astonished to see the legendary monster by his side. An attendant explained to Mukoda that there were 5 different ranks within the guild determining a merchant's status. Higher ranks were earned based on the number of fees and businesses conducted throughout the year. Mukoda aimed to start with a food stall or store, so he began at the rank called Iron and received his guild card. The next morning, Mukoda decided to sell his merchandise to earn more coins. The girl working at the guild, upon seeing what he brought, hurriedly left the room, leaving him bewildered. Moments later, she sent Mukoda to meet the guild master. After examining Mukoda's merchandise, which turned out to be only salt and pepper, the guild master was surprised and considered it high quality. He even regarded it as a gift fit for royalty. Mukoda was pleasantly surprised by this response and was thrilled that all his merchandise would be purchased. At that moment, the guild master asked Mukoda where he had obtained such high-quality ingredients. Unfortunately, Mukoda couldn't mention anything about his online store, so he simply said it was thanks to his travels. After that, the guild master offered to buy all the salt for 4 gold coins and the pepper for 10. Mukoda had only spent 5 copper coins on each, but before he could respond, the master increased the offer, thinking that Mukoda was hesitating. As a result, Mukoda ended up selling the salt and pepper for a total of 17 gold coins. Mukoda took the money, realizing it was a great deal, and knew he could live a peaceful life for some time with this money. Now, all that was left was for him to join the Adventurers Guild. Unlike the Merchants Guild, which had only 5 ranks, the Adventurers Guild had a total of 7 ranks, with G being the lowest and S being the highest. Mukoda accepted the offer, and his only commitment was to undertake at least one mission per month. He had joined the guild mainly to meet Fel's meal requirements. His first mission was to collect medicinal herbs, which seemed easy for him. Later that day, while Mukoda was feeding Fel, he decided to check his stats, only to realize that Fel's numbers were off the charts in all categories. This left Mukoda astounded. The next morning, Mukoda decided to complete the guild mission with Fel. While Mukoda collected medicinal herbs, Fel went hunting for animals to eat. Before Fel left, he detected the presence of monsters in the area where Mukoda would be, so he gave him a magical shield to keep him safe in his absence. After doing this, Fel went off to hunt. Collecting 2 types of grass turned out to be quite fast thanks to Mukoda's ability to use appraisal. Within minutes, the entire mission was completed. With plenty of spare time, Mukoda decided to prepare some food. This time, he wanted to make something cheap, so he settled on pasta. Later, Fel returned with the animals he had hunted, mentioning that he left the others at the edge of the forest. Enjoying the meal with Fel, Mukoda realized that having a good meal in another world was not so bad, even though he couldn't find his way back yet. After eating, they both headed to where Fel left the other hunts, and Mukoda was amazed to see the huge number of animals Fel had managed to catch in such a short time. Among them were a serpent, grizzly bear, and a deer. One peculiar animal caught his eye, an orc. Fel revealed that people had been eating orcs for years, which surprised Mukoda. He couldn't believe that humans also ate bipedal animals. After storing all the food, they decided to return to the city. Fel allowed Mukoda to ride on his back, ensuring they reached their destination in record time, the Adventurers Guild. Mukoda was terrified of the speed at which Fel ran. Once inside the guild, Mukoda turned in the herb mission. However, since he brought back more than what was required for the mission, the girl examining the request was surprised, because he was just a rank G adventurer. After receiving his reward, Mukoda decided to ask if it was possible to sell orcs or at least their bodies. He clarified that it was not him who had hunted them but his beast friend. The girl blushed briefly but quickly regained her composure. She mentioned that all animal parts were sold in another corner of the guild. The man in charge asked Mukoda what kind of animal he wanted to sell. Without hesitation, he presented an orc and said he wanted to sell 5 in total. The man was astonished by the quantity and took Mukoda to the back of the shop because the space was small in the guild. He mentioned that there had been many rumors about him being the guy who had made a Fenrir his familiar. Mukoda got nervous but avoided the topic. Instead, he showed all the animals Fel had hunted. The man was even more surprised to find that within this pile were monsters ranging from Class B to Class A, considered delicacies in this world. Moments later, the man handed Mukoda a small amount of meat for him to eat that day, as it would take him hours to skin the hunts. The man prepared orc meat for them, although Mukoda was skeptical at first about the taste. However, when he prepared delicious fried meat and tasted the orc for the first time, he was surprised by its flavorful taste. The next morning, Fel and Mukoda returned to pick up the food left with the man the day before, only to be surprised by the incredible amount of meat that would last them a long time. Additionally, thanks to what Mukoda decided to sell to the guild, parts he didn't plan to use, he received a reward of 202 gold coins. Mukoda was in total shock. The man told him that if he remained clueless about how strong his familiar was, it would be meaningless. Mukoda learned that in this world, orc bones, skins, and even feathers were used in various crafts and products. To conclude the explanation, the man handed Mukoda some magic demonic stones obtained from defeating Class A monsters and above, which seemed to be quite valuable. Before Mukoda left, the man gave him advice Fel could easily be mistaken for a large wolf, which could be beneficial in the future to avoid causing a commotion whenever they arrived in a new city. Without wasting any more time, Fel and Mukoda began their journey to the next city in the kingdom. Thanks to the incredible amount of money Mukoda made in the previous city, he decides he can finally afford to buy higher quality, already made food from his online store. He learns from Fel that people in this world don't raise animals, they simply hunt them. Fel feels so energized that he believes he could even defeat an ancient dragon. Later that day, Mukoda realizes that not only is the food of better quality and more delicious, but it also provides a 50% total stat bonus. Fel decides to take advantage of this energy and goes hunting after leaving Mukoda with a protection shield while he's away. With Fel's current abilities, the barrier would not lose even against a dragon's breath. After doing so, Fel proceeds to hunt down all the monsters he encounters along the way. He uses several magic powers to hunt, employing thunder against a deer, and a hurricane to defeat a pack of orcs. He realizes that not only has his strength, energy, and magic increased, but he can easily defeat a high-ranking orc general, which is significantly stronger and more powerful than a regular orc, with a single blow. Furthermore, he effortlessly defeats a chimera, continuing this streak throughout the night until sunrise. Upon waking up and realizing that he is surrounded by high-ranking monsters in the mountainous area, Mukoda decides not to prepare cow meat, which he had cooked the day before, as it could be very dangerous in the future. Not giving much importance to the issue, Mukoda and Fel, as usual, started to eat. While both were enjoying a good meal, Mukoda asked Fel if he used magic to hunt. Fel mentioned that he could currently be considered the best user of wind magic, as he had been blessed by the goddess Ninrir. Mukoda was surprised since he didn't believe there was magic in this world. Fel explained that the barrier he put up was also considered magic. However, Mukoda, being very absent-minded, didn't think it was magic. He wondered if there was a possibility that he could also use magic. Fel explained that it was possible as long as he had a certain amount of magical power, mana. Mukoda, upon hearing this, checked his statistics again and realized that he had a small amount of magic. After that, Fel explained that using magic in this world was as simple as thinking about what magic to use, and it would activate. He had to spell out the magic. Mukoda believed it wasn't that difficult, so he attempted it but ended up humiliating himself because he spoke out the word fireball but there was no fire released. After this incredible humiliation, Fel explained how to use magic correctly, which involved letting the magic flow within and practicing. After some training, Mukoda managed to cast his first fireball, although it turned out to be quite mediocre due to his low level. It was progressing slowly because he was training aimlessly. Fel explained that he needed combat experience to improve quickly. However, Mukoda refused this suggestion because he had never even used a sword. Although Fel didn't care much about this, he decided to force Mukoda into a fight with a monster. Fel took him to the forest where he found a goblin and asked him to shoot. Mukoda thought it was impossible, but Fel insisted. Mukoda saw an army of goblins and hesitated, but Fel attracted the attention of several nearby goblins by howling, starting the confrontation. Mukoda, more scared than ever, fled from the army of pursuing goblins as fast as possible. Fel left to fight off the higher-ranked ones and left Mukoda on his own. After a few moments of running, an axe landed next to him, and he decided to gather his courage and cast some spells against them. Unfortunately, he tripped over a rock in his path, seemingly meeting his end. However, when it seemed all was lost as he was attacked by a goblin, he discovered that he had a magical barrier protecting him, so there was no real danger in making a mistake. After many fireballs, he finally perfected the attack, creating quite a large fireball. After this epic moment, Mukoda was too exhausted to continue and collapsed in front of some goblins that were still alive. But just before falling unconscious, Fel came to his rescue and finally eliminated the remaining goblins. When he woke up later that night, Fel told him that he could sense that his magical power level had increased significantly, and he was impressed with his last fireball. Mukoda decided to check his stats again and realized that not only had they leveled up, but he had also acquired a new magical ability, the Fireball. To celebrate his great achievement, Fel showed him the body of a goblin king, one of the strongest goblins in this world, which contained a magic stone that could be exchanged for money. After this, Mukoda tried to get up, but to his surprise, it was almost impossible. As soon as he stood up completely, he became dizzy instantly and fell to the ground again. He realized that the only disadvantage of using a large amount of magic was becoming completely exhausted in the process, as his mana was depleted. Due to this, Mukoda fed Fel with Japanese sweets, also known as sweet bread. Surprisingly, Fel loved this food too, although Mukoda worried about his health because it wasn't very nutritious or healthy. But Fel explained that because he had the blessing of a goddess, he couldn't succumb to any illness, and he was also immune to poisons or any painful conditions. Mukoda, upon hearing this, was surprised and felt that he may also need some kind of blessing, as he thought that even without one, Fel would still be extremely powerful. The next day, Mukoda and Fel finally arrived in their next city. The people were shocked to see such a beast. Once again, they were greeted by armies of guards, where Mukoda applied the strategy of claiming that Fel was just a large wolf and not a Fenrir, and also showed them a guild card. This calmed down the guards and the people around them, who were no longer as frightened as before. It was interesting for them to see an E-rank adventurer with an A-rank familiar. However, in the middle of a conversation, Mukoda was interrupted by Fel, who turned out to have a form of mental communication or telepathy due to their familial contract, allowing them to speak without saying a word. The guards allowed them to enter on the condition that no one would be harmed or Mukoda could be sentenced to death or slavery. After this, Fel and Mukoda finally managed to enter the city, where Mukoda realized that his next objective was to obtain a map so that they no longer wandered aimlessly. Mukoda decided to leave Fel behind so that he could walk around the city without any issues while searching for a map. He ended up going to a library where, fortunately, he found a basic guide to magic. When he tried to buy the book, he found that it was quite expensive, as paper in this world was considered a kind of craftsmanship. Mukoda also inquired about the existence of a world map, to which the person attending him explained that it was a nationally prohibited item. This left him quite disappointed and shocked. Even though Mukoda didn't care much about being told that, he continued searching in the city's largest library. To his dismay, he didn't find any kind of map. Disheartened, he returned to Fel, who was quite hungry as he had spent most of the day without eating. Afterward, they both had a meal at a buffet prepared by Mukoda during the late afternoon and into the night. The next day, while Mukoda was walking, he ended up going to a bar where he hoped to gather some information. He found the tavern scary with so many soldiers drunk inside. After offering another round of drinks to the adventurers, he asked about other cities in the country and told them where he came from. The adventurers told him that the king of Riesager was not stopping his territorial expansion and was creating problems. After talking to some adventurers sitting around, Mukoda learned that there were even more kingdoms such as Ermin and Leonhardt, located to the east of their current location. Furthermore, these two kingdoms were quite politically stable and were considered treasures for adventurers due to the numerous dungeons in their vicinity. After that, Mukoda mentioned to the adventurers that he had been looking for a map but hadn't been lucky in finding one. Fortunately, one of the adventurers mentioned it secretly that they had a map and were willing to sell it to him at a low price, which would be 1 gold coin. Since maps were rare and highly valuable in this world, Mukoda quickly decided and ended up buying the map. Following this, the other people in the bar started laughing at him because it turned out he was deceived and overcharged for the map, which he could have obtained at the Adventurers Guild for just 1 silver coin. This is how Mukoda realized that he couldn't trust almost anyone in this world, and soon afterward headed to a coastal country along with Fel. As there was delicious seafood there, Fel was excited to go. The goddess of the wind observed Fel and Mukoda, wondering if Mukoda was the master of her household because of the familiar contract. The adventure of Mukoda and Fel continued as they set up their camp near a lake. This time, they planned to have fish for dinner as decided by Fel. Fel used his thunder magic to paralyze the fish in the lake so Mukoda could choose anyone he liked for dinner. Mukoda started to collect the fish, using his ability to tell which ones were poisonous. Then Mukoda asked Fel to help him prepare the fire, and he used his fire magic to light the bonfire. Afterward, he made 3 different dishes with the fish, and they ate it happily together. After eating and resting, Mukoda decided to get up for a moment. As soon as he did, he found a jelly-like thing at his feet. The thing that appeared turned out to be a slime, which, being such a low-level monster, was considered prey by others and was harmless. Mukoda quickly became fond of it. Afterward, he discovered that this slime was born just 3 days ago. The slime didn't take long to show that it was quite hungry, so Mukoda decided to cook something for it. However, there were no ingredients left to cook. The slime started to bounce toward the cooking station and started devouring all the trash left behind and almost ate the instruments that Mukoda used for cooking every day. Fortunately, Mukoda took the valuables away before they could be turned into food for the slime. Finally, after this little show, the place was considerably cleaner. Mukoda, without thinking much, praised the slime, which turned out to be quite friendly. It jumped into Mukoda's lap, and a heart was formed on its body. Fel told Mukoda that he had formed a familial contract with the slime, which surprised him. The slime would follow him anywhere. He decided to check the status of this creature to confirm what Fel said. For this reason, Mukoda ended up giving the slime a new name, Sui. The next morning, Mukoda decided to delve into his magic once again, this time attempting to master earth magic. It was a new aptitude he gained after using fire magic. Fel suggested that it would be a good idea to repeat what they did with the goblins to gain experience quickly with that magic. Although Mukoda initially refused, Fel reminded him that he wouldn't be able to use earth magic properly otherwise. He soon noticed that Sui had grown in size as he sat down to drink water. Upon checking Sui's stats, he discovered that it had leveled up considerably in just a few days, currently at level 8. Mukoda suspected that this growth was due to consuming items from another world, which not only served as a stat booster, but also functioned as an instant trash bin. Later that day, Mukoda decided to feed Sui, and after eating, he checked its stats again. He was surprised to find that normal food only provided stat boosts, while items directly affected its level. Following this, Mukoda decided to celebrate in Sui's honor, not only because he was quite fond of it but also because it assisted him in his daily activities, such as washing dishes. The next day, Fel was waiting for Mukoda to wake up. Fel had something important to tell him. It turned out that the wind goddess Ninrir gave Fel a revelation the night before. The same goddess who blessed Fel sensed Mukoda's need for a blessing, and she was willing to offer him one. The only condition was that the goddess expected to receive a weekly offering of sweets from another world. Fel explained that this blessing wasn't as comprehensive as his own but was considered a modest blessing. It would grant Mukoda immunity against pain conditions, except for death and high-level curses. Additionally, it would make using magic easier. Mukoda quickly accepted this offer, and Fel informed him that all he needed was an altar to pray to her and give her sweets, which could be anything in this world, even rocks. Mukoda prepared the offering for the goddess and started his prayer. After placing the food on the altar, it disappeared, leaving Mukoda with a miraculous glow, indicating the blessing was a success. The goddess received the sweets and enjoyed these desserts, as she had never tasted human food before. Now she knew what human happiness was like. After the blessing, Mukoda resumed experimenting with the earth magic called the stone bullet he had been practicing a few days ago. He realized that the spell now worked perfectly, stronger, and faster. However, when he took a break after his mana depletion, he was suddenly interrupted while eating sweets to regain his energy by the wind goddess Ninrir, who could now communicate with him telepathically. She only did so to request chocolates and more food. She considered it a revelation, but Mukoda knew it was a request. Without further ado, Mukoda sent them, leaving the goddess quite happy and enamored with the food. He then returned to Fel and Sui as they continued on their way to the next city. Fel was quick this time in their travels. Later that same day, Mukoda and Fel stumbled upon what appeared to be a cave. Fel explained to Mukoda that it wasn't what it seemed, it was a dungeon. These structures often appeared in areas with a high concentration of magical essence. Mukoda, quite scared, asked Fel why they ended up in such a place. Fel replied that he needed to gain experience in combat, and this was how his magic would significantly improve. Mukoda tried to walk away, but Fel brought him back. Fel had already made sure that the monsters inside weren't too strong for Mukoda, so he should be fine. However, Mukoda disagreed with Fel's methods, fearing for his life in such a dangerous place. Fel explained that he wouldn't have made this decision if Mukoda's previous training methods had been effective. He pointed out that at the rate Mukoda was progressing, it would take too long to master something as simple as magic. It would be nice if Mukoda could protect himself when Fel wasn't there for him. Mukoda realized that Fel was right, and one of Fel's main concerns was that Mukoda wouldn't be able to defend himself if Fel couldn't set up his magical barrier. Motivated by this realization, Mukoda decided to enter the dungeon. But before taking this risky step, he decided it was a good time to feast on food from another world. This type of food could significantly boost one's stats, as it did with Fel in the past. After a delicious buffet, his stats increased by 20%, and Mukoda finally ventured into the dungeon with his sword, along with Fel and Sui. The first enemy Mukoda faced appeared to be a slime. It was difficult for him to get rid of it because it reminded him of Sui, but Sui eliminated it by spewing acid. Fel discovered that these attacks were unique to Sui, and no other creatures had this ability. Sui was a unique variant. Mukoda subsequently encountered 2 more slimes, which he easily defeated. Any creature that died within the dungeon was absorbed by it as nutrients, whether it was a monster or a human, because the dungeon was like a living thing. Mukoda definitely did not want to die here. As they delved deeper into the dungeon, the enemies they encountered became stronger and of higher levels. On the second level, they faced horned rabbits, and on the third level, goblins. After a few battles, Mukoda became confused because in the forest, thanks to Fel, no monsters approached him. In contrast, in the dungeon, every living thing seemed to want to attack him. This was because any creature that entered the dungeon was considered an enemy, regardless of its level. Unfortunately for Mukoda, his peace didn't last long. After being pursued by a pack of werewolves, he finally managed to use his earth magic, effectively ending both enemies with a single blow. Although Mukoda was happy to have defeated them, Fel told him it still wasn't good enough. After some time, the group finally reached the end of the dungeon, where Mukoda would have to face 10 werewolves, according to Fel's knowledge. But as they descended further into the dungeon, Mukoda came face to face with an army of werewolves. Fel assured him that he had his protection, and he would come to his rescue if necessary. Sui was ready for the battle. Mukoda was completely paralyzed by fear, but when the werewolves attacked, he was safe because of the barrier. Sui attacked and killed many of them, which motivated Mukoda. Mukoda mustered the courage to fight them, using only his earth magic and his ability to cast stone bullets. After a while, Mukoda and Sui defeated the entire army of these monsters. Just when it seemed that everything was over, the Kobold King, a high-level werewolf, appeared. He was forced to come out because Mukoda had defeated all his subjects. Mukoda had no choice but to dodge the king's attacks, as his earth magic didn't seem very effective against this monster. To make matters worse, he was warned that his barrier wouldn't withstand many attacks from this creature. With no other option, Mukoda faced the monster relentlessly, using his earth magic. His stone bullet struck the king's head. However, it wasn't enough to stop the monster, and it only enraged him further. Mukoda couldn't believe that the king was still able to stand up. When he tried to use his earth magic again, he realized he had run out of mana. The situation seemed dire when the monster launched a brutal attack on Fel's barrier, which slowly began to give in to the creature's immense strength. In this critical moment, Sui decided to save Mukoda by using a large amount of acid, delivering the attack that finally defeated the king. After this attack, Sui started to shine, but before Mukoda could react, his body fell to the ground, exhausted from using so much magic. Later, Mukoda finally woke up, but to his surprise, Sui and he were outside the dungeon. Sui was quite worried about Mukoda and could now communicate telepathically with him, which surprised Mukoda as Sui gained this ability after defeating the king. Mukoda was pleased with this development and checked Sui's stats, finding that he was no longer a baby, and his levels had increased significantly. He was now at level 7. Mukoda then decided to check his own level and stats, realizing that he had gained 4 full levels. To add to the good news, he had unlocked his next ability called Earth Magic, although he realized he was still weaker than Sui, who was born just 14 days ago. Mukoda asked Sui if he was a unique variant, but Sui replied that he was just Sui. Fel returned to check on Mukoda, as he had been unconscious for quite some time and Fel had to look for food to satisfy his hunger in the meantime. Now, he was only interested in Mukoda's meals, as the other meals did not sound delicious to him. Mukoda, somewhat upset that Fel had lied about his barrier, reluctantly agreed to prepare a feast as it was thanks to Fel that he obtained earth magic. A few moments later, the group was already eating, and once they finished, Mukoda asked about what Fel had discussed with Sui. However, before he could respond, Sui interrupted, calling Fel his uncle. Mukoda laughed quite a bit since Fel was now considered someone's uncle. Even though Fel tried to get Sui to call him something else, it proved to be impossible since Sui liked calling him Uncle Fel quite a lot. This was mainly due to his kindness, strength, and the fact that he was born before Sui, leaving Fel as someone quite amazing. Even though he didn't fully embrace the idea, he knew he liked being called that. Fel got annoyed with Sui, causing him to shout at him and making the little slime cry as he went to seek refuge with Mukoda. After that, Fel felt pretty bad, and in order not to end up as a heartless creature, he decided to allow Sui to call him Uncle Fel, thus ending the rest of the day that way. The group gradually approached the next kingdom, and Fel informed Mukoda that they were about to pass through a forest inhabited by creatures known as Orthus and Griffins. In this world, many territories shared similarities, so people usually avoided crossing forests like these to prevent trouble. Mukoda began to question Fel's choice, wondering why they were going through this territory when they could go around it to avoid potential dangers. Fel, however, reassured him, explaining that these creatures posed no threat to him. The only ones who might challenge them were the young and reckless members of each species, as none had ever dared to confront Fel. Despite Fel's reassurances, Mukoda remained paranoid and continued to express his concerns. Before he could protest further, Fel informed him that it was already too late. They had entered Orc territory. For a moment, they stood still, and Fel sensed the approaching danger. Suddenly, they heard an unusual sound in the distance. Fel prepared for potential combat. Then, without warning, they were attacked from behind by strange creatures resembling wolves with 2 heads and snakes. These monsters were more numerous than expected, quickly surrounding them. Mukoda panicked and turned to Fel for reassurance. Fel, however, remained calm and confident, explaining that there was no need to fear these creatures. With just a single intimidating glance, he managed to keep the monsters at bay. Most of them retreated, intimidated by Fel's presence. Yet, one of the creatures refused to back down, driven by its youth and lack of fear. After their encounter with the young creatures, Fel instructed Mukoda to take Sui and move away from the area. Without hesitation, Mukoda fled with Sui, finding refuge behind some bushes while leaving Fel to deal with the creatures. Fel attempted to reason with the young monsters, explaining that they had no understanding of what it meant to challenge him. However, his words have little effect, and one of the creatures lunged at him. To Fel's mild surprise, he effortlessly defeated his opponent with a single blow, leaving Mukoda astonished by Fel's incredible skill, and causing the other creatures to retreat out of fear. Following Fel's impressive display, Mukoda returned with Sui. Fel couldn't resist boasting about his remarkable abilities, such as his rending claws that allowed him to charge mana on their tips and release it. Sui, greatly fascinated by his uncle Fel, asked Mukoda if he could gain such abilities. Mukoda, noting his lack of claws, explained that it seemed unlikely. Still, he praised Sui for his remarkable acid ability, which left Fel feeling a bit insignificant. Fel couldn't help but notice the different way Mukoda treated him and Sui, which unsettled him. As night fell, while everyone rested and awaited their dinner, Mukoda inquired about how much longer it would take to cross the entire forest. Fel informed him that they had already traversed more than half of it. Mukoda calculated that they had spent 3 weeks in the forest, and since they had only covered half of it, another 3 weeks lay ahead. Realizing that their meat reserves would hardly suffice, they decided to use their food stores. Mukoda prepared serpent meat, and as they feasted, the day came to an end. Continuing their journey through the forest, Fel suddenly came to a complete stop. Mukoda was puzzled by Fel's sudden stop and asked if something was amiss. Fel explained that it was unusual to find the glowing blue mushrooms in front of them. These mushrooms, known as healing mushrooms, possess the remarkable ability to mend and heal the body of anyone who consumed them. They were highly regarded for their regenerative properties, often used in medicine but also found in the wild. Recognizing their value, Mukoda decided to collect some of these mushrooms. Sui approached Mukoda, inquiring if he could eat some of them. Mukoda agreed but cautioned him not to overindulge. Together, they gathered a substantial quantity of the healing mushrooms for potential emergencies. However, Sui's body began to emit a soft glow. This transformation was a result of Sui consuming numerous healing mushrooms. Concerned, Mukoda checked Sui's statistics and was astonished to discover that Sui had gained the ability to create healing potions. Fel explained that he had witnessed a similar occurrence in the past, where a slime consumed a metal stone and evolved into a metallic slime, acquiring new abilities. Realizing that slimes could evolve based on their diet, Mukoda viewed this new ability as a significant advantage. He praised Sui for his achievements and encouraged him for doing an excellent job. Intrigued by this newfound ability, Mukoda asked Sui to demonstrate it. After some experimentation, Sui successfully created a healing liquid. Mukoda, amazed, carefully stored the liquid in a bottle for future use. After obtaining a substantial quantity of the healing liquid, Mukoda examined it more closely. To his surprise, he discovered that it was more than just a healing potion. It had the exceptional ability to prevent imminent death. This high-grade potion was of exceptional quality, and the reason behind its unique properties remained a mystery. When Mukoda asked Sui about it, Sui simply explained that it could heal many types of pain. Further exploration revealed that Sui possessed the remarkable ability to create potions that could alleviate a wide range of pains, from mild discomfort to severe agony. Mukoda wasted no time in storing the 3 different types of potions, each distinguished by its distinct glow. Fel expressed his astonishment at Sui's abilities, noting that in all his years, he had never encountered a slime with such talents. He found Sui to be an incredibly unique member of his species. As the group continued their journey, they entered Griffin territory and had been traveling through it for 3 days when they encountered a particularly intelligent griffin who could speak in the human language. The griffin had a request for Fel. If he wanted to become the leader of the griffins, he had to prove his worthiness by defeating him in combat. After some persuasion and appeals, Fel finally accepted the griffin's challenge, assuring him that he wouldn't make it an easy fight. Although the initial plan was a fight to the death, Mukoda telepathically requested that Fel refrain from killing his opponent. The battle began abruptly, with the griffin unleashing all of its abilities. Fel, without the need to kill his adversary, demonstrated his formidable strength. The fight appeared intense and closely matched, but ultimately, Fel emerged victorious. He used his wind power to trap the griffin inside a hurricane, tearing it apart and leaving the griffin near death. Moved by the griffin's fighting spirit, Mukoda rushed to its aid. He used one of the potent healing potions to save the griffin's life. The wounds healed instantly, sparing the griffin from a fatal fate. Grateful for the fierce battle, the griffin expressed its gratitude, and Mukoda's act of kindness left a lasting impact. The defeated griffin initially felt unworthy and disappointed for not being able to face Fel. It believed it was unfit to fight him. Mukoda reassured the griffin, showing it a wound he had inflicted on Fel during their battle, which lifted its spirits. The griffin gathered all the griffins in the vicinity and became their leader, expressing gratitude to Fel for their battle. In a sign of appreciation, the griffin offered Mukoda one of its feathers, which would serve as a pass through the forest, preventing other griffins from attacking him. After bidding farewell to the griffins, the group continued their journey. That night, they enjoyed delicious orc cutlets, and Fel reminded Mukoda to offer his prayers to the goddess, a duty he had forgotten. Finally, they exited the forest and found themselves in a picturesque valley. Mukoda was excited, as they had been traveling for a month and a half. Checking the map, he realized they were quite close to the kingdom of Leonhardt, and he decided it was time to replenish their supplies since their meat was running low. Fel recognized the seriousness of the situation and increased their pace to reach the kingdom quickly. On their way, Mukoda spotted a caravan in the distance that was under attack by bandits. Without hesitation, he asked Fel to intervene, promising to prepare a luxurious dinner in return. Fel agreed and rushed towards the caravan. There, they witnessed a fierce battle between the bandits and the guards protecting the caravan. Fel's timely arrival, with intimidating howls and threats, caused the bandits to surrender, saving the guards. They met the caravan's owner, Lambert, who expressed deep gratitude to Mukoda for their timely assistance. They also met the leader of the Phoenix group, Lars, responsible for guarding the caravan. These travelers revealed that they were headed to the city of Kurlina, located in the northwest of the kingdom of Leonhardt, their first city in the kingdom. Upon hearing this, Mukoda requested to travel with them, along with Fel and Sui. Without much hesitation, they accepted Mukoda's proposal, and so their journey continued together. As they traveled with the caravan, Mukoda overheard rumors about himself and Fel. There was uncertainty among the people about whether Fel was a mere great wolf or a true Fenrir. Mukoda was surprised by how quickly these rumors had spread. One of the guards mentioned the existence of teleportation cards in this world, which shed light on how the rumors might have circulated. This revelation concerned Mukoda. He worried about what nobles and kingdoms might do if they discovered that Fel was indeed a true Fenrir. These legendary creatures were highly sought after as allies, and Mukoda wanted to avoid getting entangled in any trouble. He also wished to keep his own identity as a summoned a secret. As night fell, Mukoda and Fel fulfilled their part of the deal by preparing a luxurious dinner. To avoid drawing attention from the caravan members, Mukoda decided to move away from the camp to cook the feast discreetly. Once the food was ready, Fel and Sui eagerly began devouring it. However, the aroma wafted over to the caravan members, revealing Mukoda's presence. He had no choice but to share the meal with them, depleting their remaining meat supplies, and he went without dinner himself. The next morning, they arrived in the city of Kurlina, accompanied by the caravan. The caravan's leader informed Mukoda that Kurlina was the 5th largest city in the kingdom of Leonhardt, and also his hometown. He mentioned that his family was involved in a shoemaking business and dealt with various other items. After bidding farewell to Lambert and promising to visit his store in the future, Mukoda went with the other adventurers to the guild. There, he received surprising news. His adventurer's license had been revoked because he hadn't completed a mission for over a month. Mukoda explained that the reason for this was their journey through Griffin territory, which made it impossible to accept missions. The lady at the guild clarified that many rank G adventurers aim to quickly complete the minimum number of missions to advance to rank F. This way, they could enjoy 3 months without reporting or taking on missions while also earning more experience and money. Mukoda decided to re-register with the guild and paid the required fee. He also mentioned that he had acquired more familiars since his last registration, introducing Sui to the lady. However, the presence of a slime familiar garnered mocking from other adventurers, as slimes were known to be weak creatures. Undeterred, Mukoda proceeded with the registration process. Afterwards, he decided to sell the monsters he had hunted during his journey. The other adventurers were curious and gathered around to inspect his catches. Mukoda presented his entire collection, impressing the group with the high-quality meat he had obtained. The skilled butcher at the guild expressed his gratitude for the excellent meat and commented that other butchers might have taken advantage of Mukoda or done a poor job. He also mentioned that he had never imagined eating such rare meat before. Upon hearing Mukoda's explanation about the meat they had eaten the previous day, the group of adventurers who had joined him offered their apologies and even bowed to him. They couldn't believe they had enjoyed such high-quality ingredients, considering their modest backgrounds. Mukoda, feeling somewhat nervous, asked them not to apologize, as they had taken care of him during their journey. Grateful for the delicious meal, the adventurers thanked Mukoda and informed him that they were well known in the city. They assured him that if he ever needed assistance, He could count on them. With that, they bid their farewells. Later, Mukoda found himself resting in an inn that had been recommended to him. His plan was to accept and complete missions in the morning and continue doing so until he reached rank F, allowing him to settle down for a while. However, his plans were interrupted by the wind goddess, who reminded him of the offering he owed her. Reluctantly, Mukoda sent her a generous assortment of pastries and sweets and asked for her protection. The next day, Mukoda, Fel, and Sui headed to the guild to accept missions. As he perused the available missions, Mukoda noticed that each one came with a certain number of points, and he needed a total of 100 points to reach rank F. Fel strongly suggested accepting the Goblin mission, which offered 3 points, but Mukoda was hesitant due to his past trauma involving goblins. However, Mukoda realized that the final decision rested with Sui, and to his dismay, Sui decided to go and confront the goblins. Later, the group ventured into the forest in search of the goblins. The mission was fairly straightforward. Eliminate 5 goblins in exchange for 3 silver coins and 3 points. Fel quickly located a few of them, but they were swiftly dispatched by Sui's acid attack. Mukoda was both shocked and relieved at the speed with which Sui handled the goblins. However, to officially complete the mission, Mukoda had to cut off the ears of each goblin, which further traumatized him. Soon, more goblins were drawn to Mukoda's presence, and Sui ended up defeating more than necessary. Fel realized that there was a nearby goblin colony, and after some persuasion from Sui, Mukoda reluctantly agreed to take on the colony. After some time, they managed to complete the mission, resulting in several bags filled with goblin ears and an even more traumatized Mukoda. However, they were left with another issue: the goblin corpses. Leaving them unattended could attract more dangerous creatures or even create a dungeon, and goblins were not fit for consumption. Fel suggested having Sui dissolve the bodies, leaving Mukoda confused. Sui confirmed that it was possible and showcased a new ability called Great Slime, which had developed due to its recent growth. Mukoda was amazed and asked if Sui could also become smaller. Sui agreed to try and multiply into smaller versions of itself, efficiently dissolving the large pile of goblin corpses. This highlighted Sui's uniqueness among its species, but it also raised concerns from Mukoda, as Sui's power seemed to be growing beyond control, and he had no way to contain it. Later that day, as the group rested and enjoyed savory bread, Mukoda contemplated whether he had already achieved his goal of reaching rank F, thanks to the large number of goblins they had eliminated. However, he found it hard to believe, as he had initially planned to spend a few more months leveling up and resting in the city. As expected, when Mukoda turned in all the goblins he had hunted, he left the entire guild astonished by his remarkable feat. The guild staff, especially the girls attending to Mukoda, were quite surprised and confused, not knowing what to do with such a large number of goblins. Mukoda hoped this wouldn't cause him any trouble, but shortly after, a guild girl approached him and informed him that the guild master wished to see him along with his companions. With no other option, Mukoda, Fel, and Sui went to meet the guild master. This is where they met Wilhelm, the guild master. He explained to Mukoda that the reason he was summoned was due to the large number of goblins he had hunted. Mukoda quickly responded that it was all thanks to encountering a goblin settlement. After hearing this, the master decided it was a good idea to reward them for clearing the settlement, which had caused several problems for a while. Following that, the master praised them and acknowledged Fel's great strength, knowing that Fel was a Fenrir. But that's not all. The master informed Mukoda that he also called him because he had an urgent message from the royal palace. It turned out the message conveyed that the king allowed the group the right to live freely in the kingdom, and this had already been communicated to all the nobles. However, the only condition was that they were expected to cooperate in emergencies. Mukoda was surprised to learn that he wouldn't be bothered by the royal family or the nobles. The guild master assured him that this was the case, primarily because Mukoda, having a legendary beast like Fel, already posed a threat to other kingdoms. This way, Mukoda finally secured his freedom. After that, the master returned to the original topic and told Mukoda that his real goal was to rise to rank C. Mukoda responded that he only wanted to reach rank F to maintain his adventurer's license for a longer time. The master then proposed that Mukoda ascend to rank C, as this would help him avoid questions about why a rank G adventurer had a Fenrir as an ally. In exchange, the master asked for a few favors. Mukoda, noticing the master's intent, tried to evade the topic, saying that he didn't aim to become a renowned adventurer. The master insisted, mentioning that these missions were of rank or S. Upon hearing this, Mukoda asked Fel if he thought those high-rank missions were possible, to which Fel responded that there was nothing impossible for him. They ended up accepting the high-ranking missions offered by the Master. The Master concluded their conversation by informing them that he would also inform the rest of the adventurers not to get in their way, mainly to prevent them from becoming obstacles. After that, Mukoda mentioned that he also wanted to sell a few things and then showed the mountain of creatures he had stored. The guild master was left astonished by what he saw and asked the butcher not to say anything about what he had witnessed, as Mukoda had initially hidden the Chimera and Orthus. Shortly afterward, the butcher explained that most of the monsters there were of S-rank category, with clear examples being the Orc King or the Blue Orc. Such an achievement was mainly due to their extreme difficulty to defeat. Although it was no surprise to Mukoda since Fel defeated them as if they were flies, the butcher informed him to return the next day to collect all his meat. The guild master also told him that his new rank C adventurer's license would be ready at the guild. The day continued, and the group had a healthy dinner. The next morning, the group returned to the guild, with Mukoda receiving his new adventurer's license. This card had a metallic and silvery texture. The guild master explained that rank C adventurers could take on missions every 6 months, so he shouldn't lose his license so easily. To wrap things up, the master handed over his reward from the day before. This left Mukoda astonished at the number of bags filled with gold, totaling 461 gold coins, which was an extremely large amount compared to last time. To Mukoda's surprise, this was just the first installment. The master mentioned that the second delivery was 1415 gold coins, and finally, the reward for the goblin hunting and the destruction of their settlement amounted to 1946 gold coins. Mukoda was quite surprised. Upon hearing these amounts, he realized that he still had money left over from the last time, so he now had over 2,000 gold coins. Hearing this, he became even more concerned about his safety, as he couldn't let anyone know about all the money he had, or he'd become an easy target for theft. Afterward, the guild master again requested Mukoda's help, this time asking him to hunt a metal lizard and a herd of bloody horn bulls. He suggested they go after the lizard first, as it was only a 2-day carriage ride away, while the bulls, apart from being in a different direction, were naturally quite violent, and their size made them even more dangerous. To convince Fel, Mukoda told him that with that highly ranked meat, they could prepare something exquisite. After that, the group got to work, but before they set out, Mukoda mentioned he wanted to visit a friend, Lambert, since his family had a shop where they sold various items. Lambert asked what brought him there, and Mukoda responded that he was looking for a new bag because the one he had was quite battered. Lambert assured him that it was no problem and that he had multiple bags to choose from. He asked if he could try one with Sui, indicating that the bag was for his familiar, and not so much for himself. Sui ended up choosing the cheapest bag. Afterward, Mukoda continued to browse the store, buying a nice belt to carry his knife and a wallet. However, before the man finished charging him, Mukoda realized they also sold shoes. He noticed he had been wearing the same old and cheap shoes, and even though he could buy them online, he decided to purchase what Lambert offered him to avoid drawing attention. Lambert mentioned that the total price came to over 11 gold coins, but he insisted it was all free from Mukoda, as he was very grateful for saving his life and for providing him with the high-quality meat from last time. After that, Mukoda thanked him and accepted the gifts. Lambert asked that he bring black snakeskin the next time he visited him. That night, Mukoda and Fel both craved serpent meat, so he made tenders for them and enjoyed the night. The next day, the group arrived at the mountain where the metal lizard was supposed to be. After confirming the location, Fel delved further into the mountain to find it, thanks to his keen sense of smell, which made tracking it relatively easy. Eventually, he located the cave where the metal lizard nested. Once inside the cave, it didn't take long for them to encounter the first enemy. At first, they thought it was an ordinary lizard, but after using the appraisal skill, they realized it was a mithril lizard. Mukoda was quite confused because it was supposed to be the metal lizard in this location. Fel scanned and smelled the entire area, realizing that everything around them was made of mithril, leading him to believe that this lizard may have evolved. Unfortunately for everyone, Fel mentioned that mithril is a rather lightweight, strong mineral highly compatible with magic. This compatibility means that magic wouldn't be very effective against it. In simple terms, it could absorb and disperse magic easily, which would result in magic being reduced to only half of its effectiveness. Upon hearing this, Mukoda thought that even with magic and Fel's power, it would be a challenging battle. However, Fel reassured him, launching a lightning bolt that defeated the lizard with a single blow. It killed the lizard because this magic was not diffusible. Afterward, the lizard was stored, and the group began to explore the cave. Mukoda got to see what mithril mineral looked like, as he had a fantasy dream of having a sword, weapon, and even armor made from this rare material. He collected a bit from the cave, but before he could continue gathering more, they were interrupted by Fel, who overheard Mukoda's comments. Fel said that nothing was stronger or more resistant than his magical barrier, so he didn't need any armor. Instead, he focused on getting stronger. He then expressed his eagerness to complete the next mission, leaving the others astonished by his enthusiasm. Fel mentioned that he did it mainly for the bloody horned bull's meat, as it was quite delicious, and then he grabbed Mukoda and carried him against his will. They didn't take long to find the entire herd of these bulls. Fel told Mukoda that he wouldn't take long to take care of them all. Sui poked out from the bag and asked where Fel went, and after hearing that he went to hunt, Sui also wanted to partake, leaving Mukoda alone, waiting. As usual, it didn't take more than 2 seconds for Fel to eliminate the entire herd. Fel used his magic and caused a wild wind to blow over, and Sui took care of the rest. After storing the whole herd of bulls, they sat down for a picnic. Later that same day, the group headed to the guild to collect their rewards for both missions. Upon arrival, they displayed the mithril lizard, leaving the guild master and the butcher astonished. The butcher explained that such lizards were exceedingly rare, with the last sighting dating back over 400 years. The guild master added that the lizard's presence indicated the discovery of a new mithril mine, a precious mineral only found in 3 mountains worldwide, making it exceptionally rare. The guild master also mentioned that the lizard's skin would be presented as a gift to the king, and Mukoda would receive a reward of at least 5,000 gold coins for it. Mukoda was shocked to learn this, realizing he was now quite wealthy. Before the guild master could discuss their next mission involving the bulls, Mukoda surprised them again by revealing that it was already completed. He displayed all the bulls they had hunted, leaving the guild members even more amazed. The day concluded with Mukoda announcing a feast thanks to the abundance of high-quality meat they had obtained, much to Fel and Sui's delight. The meal turned out to be delicious, ending the day with a grand feast. As Mukoda was making his weekly offering to his goddess before bedtime, strange voices suddenly interrupted him. These voices had been spying on Fenrir for several days and were quite interested in the sweets and gifts she received. These voices turned out to be 3 more goddesses, and they offered him their blessings in exchange for receiving sweets as offerings. Despite Mukoda mentioning that he had already received a minor blessing from the wind goddess, the new goddesses argued that it wouldn't protect him from status ailments. The earth goddess, Kisharl, proposed an affinity blessing to enhance his earth magic, while the fire goddess, Agni, offered to boost his fire magic. Mukoda initially refused their offers because he was already bothered by the whole offering business and didn't know any humans with so many blessings. However, the goddesses decided to force their blessings upon him, which meant he would now have to send them offerings as well. This left only the water goddess, Ruzalka, without the chance to grant her blessing, as Mukoda had no affinity for water magic. The goddess felt upset that she wouldn't receive any delicious offerings like her fellow goddesses, and she ended up crying. Mukoda tried to find a solution to the situation and gain some benefit from it, so he asked if the water goddess could bless Sui instead, allowing Sui to benefit from her blessing. The water goddess granted Sui her blessing, but unlike Mukoda's minor blessing, Sui received a full blessing. The reason for this difference was that the water goddess only gave 1 blessing every century, while her companions granted blessings more frequently. To ensure they all received offerings equally, they decided to give full blessings during their rare opportunities, as they had angered the god of creation with their recklessness. Mukoda made an offering to appease the goddesses and end their interference. The next morning, Mukoda tested his enhanced abilities and noticed a significant improvement compared to before. Fel explained that even a modest blessing had a substantial effect on him due to his initial weakness. Sui also decided to experiment with his new blessing and demonstrated his newfound tremendous power by easily breaking a tree in half. Fel suggested a challenge, but Mukoda intervened, not wanting anyone to get hurt. Mukoda had a brilliant idea to use his enhanced earth magic to build a house, while Fel went on a hunt for the black serpent. The following morning, the group woke up in their newly constructed earth house, feeling quite content. When Fel inquired about their plans for the day, Mukoda mentioned that he had already advanced in rank, so there was no immediate need for hunting. Fel, however, declared that every day was a hunting day for him. Mukoda decided to prioritize delivering the black snake to Lambert and collecting the meat from their previous hunt at the guild. They made a stop at the butcher's shop along the way to pick up the meat. The butcher informed Mukoda that his order was ready and handed him 4 bags filled with gold coins. However, there was still more money owed for the mithril lizard, so the guild master had gone to discuss the matter with the city lord. Mukoda wasn't in a hurry and requested that the black snake's skin be removed. He told the butcher that this time he wanted to sell everything except the meat and the skin, and the butcher promptly got to work. During lunch, Mukoda had a surprise for Fel and Sui. With the money they had earned, he managed to purchase a meat grinder, allowing him to prepare a new dish called Bloody Horn Bull and Orc General Hamburger Steak, which turned out to be surprisingly delicious. After lunch, Mukoda decided to buy personal hygiene products such as soap and shampoo. Since these items were common in this world, no one would suspect anything when he sold them, potentially earning extra money as a merchant. Later that day, the group delivered the black snake's skin to Lambert. He was surprised to see genuine skin in such pristine condition, as it was quite rare in their world. Lambert then offered to buy it for 50 gold coins, an offer Mukoda accepted without complaints. Additionally, Mukoda sought Lambert's advice on a matter. He revealed that he was a member of the Merchants Guild, which surprised Lambert since it was rare for someone to be registered in both guilds. Mukoda showed Lambert his hygiene products, asking if he thought they would sell well. Lambert examined the products and commented that the soap had a pleasant scent, akin to a robust flower. Mukoda went on to explain and show him the other products, including conditioner, shampoo, and even a hair mask. Lambert remained silent for a few moments before expressing extreme gratitude for having met Mukoda. It turns out that Lambert's wedding anniversary was in 2 weeks, and he was deeply concerned about what gift to give his wife. He believed Mukoda's products would be perfect since his wife loved to bathe. Mukoda was left quite impressed and surprised by the existence of baths in this world. He asked Lambert if he would mind showing him his bathtub, and Lambert agreed without any issue. He led Mukoda to his colorful and decorated bathtub, explaining that just the installation could cost several hundred gold coins. In this world, having a bathtub was considered a sign of success. Afterward, Lambert asked Mukoda if he was interested in getting a bathtub and offered to introduce him to a shop. Mukoda accepted without objections because he desperately wanted a bathtub. Later, Mukoda decided to leave one of each product with Lambert for now, mainly so he could try them and verify their quality. The next day, Mukoda visited Lambert's shoemaking shop to see how he was doing after his bath. As soon as he opened the door, he was surprised by Lambert's wife, Marie, who was fascinated by his presence. Lambert formally introduced them, revealing his wife's name. However, before Mukoda could say anything, he was interrupted by Marie, who was enchanted by the items Mukoda was selling. She mentioned that the previous night, her husband had exuded a sweet fragrance after his bath, and his hair was shining, leaving her astonished. Marie wanted to try the products immediately, and upon using them, she saw the results. Her skin became silky, and her hair cleaner and fresher than ever. This even surprised Lambert because these items had enhanced his wife's beauty even more. Now, Lambert wanted to see if he could buy a complete set for his wife, and he also wanted items to sell in the shop. He had considered this before but hadn't asked for the favor because he wasn't sure if they would sell. However, Marie was confident that everything would sell out quickly, as she knew many friends and nobles who would likely compete for these items. Excited, she approached Mukoda and asked him to sell them in their shop, to which he replied hesitantly that he would gladly do so, as he didn't have a shop of his own yet. Later, Mukoda returned to Fel and Sui, telling them everything that had happened. He left a lot of merchandise with Lambert and his wife, so they should have enough for a while. Then, Mukoda decided to go to the Adventurers Guild because he heard that the guild master had finally returned from seeing the city lords. When he entered the guild master's room, he was startled by what he saw in front of him, the remaining part of his reward, totaling 58 gold coins, as the city lord was extremely grateful. With all that money, Mukoda planned to buy his dream bathtub, but they were interrupted by a guild girl who brought bad news. The city had been invaded by a swarm of wyverns. Everyone rushed to see the situation, and the girl explained that a swarm of these monsters attacked a group while they were hunting in the western plains of the city. The guild master commented that he had been informed that some wyverns had gone missing, and it seemed they were looking for the bloody horned bulls that Mukoda had already killed. When they reached the lower floor, they witnessed a scene with several injured individuals, some of whom had wounds that could be fatal. Everyone was quite nervous because their healing potions were running low, and they didn't have enough antidotes to save them all. However, Mukoda interrupted them by saying he had high-quality potions. As he administered them, it was clear that these potions completely healed the patients and detoxified them, saving everyone who was injured. After this, the guild master informed all the adventurers that their mission was to hunt down all the wyverns, and all adventurers of rank C or higher were required to participate. Unfortunately for Mukoda, he was already a rank C adventurer. If they didn't stop the swarm of these monsters, they would likely attack the city soon. This motivated everyone in the room. However, amidst all the commotion and emotions, Fel interrupted, having overheard everything. He confidently stated that he could handle all those wyverns, as this hunt was as simple as an exercise for him, and also, the meat was delicious. Although Mukoda initially refused this idea, he eventually accepted it. Fel also asked if all the monsters he hunted would belong to him, to which the guild master confirmed yes, and they would also receive monetary rewards. Fel also told the master that they did not need anyone's help as they would be an obstacle. After hearing this, they immediately set out. The group didn't take long to find these monsters, as they had gathered up in the sky. Fel taught Sui how to fight them. They needed to aim for their heads and wings. As they were going to eat them afterward, it was necessary not to damage their bodies. Fel and Sui then decided to engage in battle and, without too much difficulty, quickly annihilated the entire swarm. Meanwhile, Mukoda hid behind a rock, but to his bad luck, he was also attacked by one of these monsters from behind. However, thanks to Fel's barrier, he received no damage and was later saved by Sui and Fel in a combined attack, with Fel ending the battle by decapitating the monster, leaving Mukoda traumatized. After this, the group decided to make a delicious meal to celebrate their victory, thus saving the Adventurers Guild in the city. At the guild, anxiety filled the air as the group hadn't returned by nightfall. When they finally arrived, they shared the good news of eliminating the wyverns, bringing cheers from everyone. Mukoda didn't intend to reveal they were late because they were having lunch, but Fel and Sui blurted it out. Mukoda wanted to sell the wyverns to the guild, excluding the meat, but the guild master explained they couldn't afford the full purchase and settled for half. Later that night, as he prepared to rest, Mukoda remembered his offerings to the goddesses. Their demands weighed heavily on him, leaving him tired. The following day, he visited a store that sold bathtubs, feeling like he'd entered heaven. He examined various options and settled on a simple green tub, paying for the 300 gold coins in cash. Mukoda decided to leave the city for a while and enjoy a long, private bath. He constructed a stone wall around the tub and had Sui fill it with water. Mukoda relished in a leisurely bath while Fel went hunting. After the bath, inspired by Fel's praise of wyvern meat, Mukoda decided to prepare it. While he waited for Fel, he also prepared stew. When Fel returned, he brought with him a massive earth dragon, feeling disappointed by the wyvern hunt. The challenge with these rare hunts, however, was that they were difficult to sell since few had the resources to purchase them. Fel argued in favor of the dragon meat, emphasizing its deliciousness. During their conversation, Fel caught the scent of the stew Mukoda had prepared and expressed his desire to eat it. Mukoda asked him to first take a bath, as Fel was quite dirty from the hunt. Mukoda started by untangling Fel's fur, and then, with Sui's abilities, turned it into a shower, making it easier to clean the huge Fenrir. After a thorough bath, Fel looked every bit at the legendary Fenrir. Afterward, they savored the mouth-watering stew with rice and enjoyed the night. The following day, as they took the dragon to the guild master informed Mukoda that they couldn't accept it, as he had expected. Dragons had no disposable parts, as everything in their bodies was precious material. However, the guild master knew someone in Dahlan who could dissect the dragon. This guild master had extensive knowledge of dragons. Mukoda prepared for his journey and bid farewell to the people he knew. After receiving a map for the road and a letter for the guild master in Dahlan, they set off on their journey. Watch this next video. See you on the next one.